Hey, Dakin, can I get a oh yeah?
Oh yeah! What's up, y'all? I'm Dakin, this is my bro Stacy, and this is the Steakin Claims podcast.
A show where we talk about, laugh at, and educate each other on the weirdest things we know and do. We got guests, we got game, and we got good vibes. All right, on this week's podcast, I am joined as usual by Jordan, Dakin, and our special guest, Mark
Williams Blue.
It was coming to me.
Hello, everyone.
This is just typical Mark. Like, don't even be mad, okay?
I'm here to roll with the flow here.
I'll edit something there.
Yeah, just make that pause a little less awkward.
Mark Williams. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. What's your... Oh, Stacy.
Yeah, that's... Yeah.
I knew that.
Anyway.
I know, I knew your last name too, but it wouldn't fucking come to me.
Well, Andrew, what are we doing with today's episode?
We are doing a very special gay podcast.
Whoop, whoop.
Hey!
Hey, queen.
I say that in the loosest terms because, Jordan, you are...
I am a non-binary pansexual individual.
And I am a gay man. It's good to define things right at the beginning. You know.
Here we go. And Andrew, you should define yourself.
I am a straight heterosexual male with a... I don't think we need to go on to digits, but...
Wait,
What?
Where's this going?
Also, if you're straight, most people assume that you're heterosexual. They're synonymous. Leave that in, because that was gold. Oh, God.
Let's start off with some background on how you and Mark know each other. You guys went to university together at Lakehead of Aurelia. How did you guys meet?
Yeah, for sure. So, I came in my first year, and my floor rep was a lovely lady named Monty.
Oh, love her.
And Mark and Monty were friends. And so, like, first semester, we met a couple of times, but never really, like, hung out. Like, it was always like, oh, that's Monty's friend Mark, at least for my end. And we had, like, plans to get to know each other a little bit more. It's just, it never really happened. And then we ended up actually hanging out and drinking one night. A lot. And that's kind of, like, I would say that was, like, the moment that we became friends. And
The first official time we really, like, hung out and drank together.
yeah.
And, yeah, kind of, started to get to know each other. I think that was, like, the jumping off point.
Yeah, for sure. And then we discovered, like, I was living in Port at the time when I was home, and you were in Brooklyn. And that's, like, 20 minutes away from each other. And so we said that we were going to make plans to hang out in the summer.
And it took us years.
It took us, like, a good, like, 2.5 years to make that a thing. But, yeah, we just, like, I think after first year, we started hanging out a lot more, the two of us.
Yeah.
Because I got a little bit more affiliated with your friend group at the time. And then your friend group just got all drama llama, and we both were just kind of like, fuck this.
Yes, yeah.
So then we started hanging out a lot more. And I don't think we've really looked back from there.
No, and God, I think, we always laugh and stuff about all the stories we have from university, which I'm sure could be a podcast episode of its own.
Honestly, yes.
But, yeah, I think it's exactly how you described it. We just became really good friends from there. We shared a lot of the same views, and, we were interested in a lot of the same things, and had a love of wine and beer and alcohol and,
Yep.
and watching movies and going out to dinner and just having a good time and bar hopping,
Yeah,
all
for
the good
sure.
times. And we just got really close from there, and yeah.
Yeah, and now here we are. Like, 5 years later, is it? Yeah, well, I was in first year 5 years
Yeah.
ago, so we're going with 5 years.
We're gonna go 5 years, yeah.
All right.
And then I brought. Sorry, I just kind of think that we should introduce you into this triangle of love.
Oh, yes.
Not a love triangle, triangle of love.
Love, yes.
And then, when was the first time I invited you to my house? I was gonna say brought you home, but I feel like no, brought you home works.
It was on, well, there was the first time I had actually gone to the Kuiper's house was I dropped you off one time when we were on our way home from, for like Christmas break or something, or reading week.
Right.
And I dropped you off, and I kind of briefly met everyone, but I hadn't met Andrew at that point, because that was just, you know, mainly the Kuipers, and,
Yeah.
and I think Dorothy was there, but anyway. But I think the first time I met Andrew was in the summer of that same kind of year, and I was invited over. I think it was just for like a bonfire, like just kind of a hangout kind of night. And you warned me about, you know, sitting in the chair, and how I was going to get grilled with questions.
Oh, yes, the chair.
From Ron. And
Shit, we never did bring up the chair in our family tree episode.
I'm so glad I
We
did.
could probably like have an episode about the chair itself.
And so then I was like, oh, now I'm nervous. And Jordan was like, no, there's no reason to be nervous. Everyone's really cool. But, you know, when you meet people for the first time, it's always nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Newbies, new people. And then I think how me and Andrew started, we were just having a dart one time, and we had been drinking a little bit, and we just kind of started chatting.
Yeah.
I think on the back deck there.
On the back deck, and then I think we ended up in the garage.
Yes, most likely.
I think we had a couple very late nights in the garage.
Yes,
Who
indeed.
hasn't had a couple very nice nights in the garage?
Yep.
Nightly.
Shut up.
But yeah, and then it kind of grew from there with my relationship with you and Jenna and you know, the Kuiper clan and Dorothy, and then we all went to Joanne's wedding and camping, and yeah, and it just kind of blossomed from there, if you will.
Yeah.
Okay.
I would say it's continuing to blossom.
Absolutely, we stopped camping this year too.
For sure.
I would say camping definitely, that was a lot of fun last year. We definitely bonded over that.
Absolutely, we did. Yeah, had many in-depth conversations, non-in-depth conversations, shots. I mean, vodka.
The first night camping, this will probably again come up in the camping podcast, but
Absolutely
we'll tell this one here since Mark's here. So the first night we had some shit go down with
He who shall not be named.
Yeah, I was
he
gonna
who
say
shall
first
not be
people
named.
named.
Yes.
And at one point Jordan tried to fight him.
He started it.
And then Mark tried to fight him.
He started it.
And then after everything subsided and I finished coddling the motherfucker, which I still regret to this day, everyone kind of teetered off to bed after a while, and Jordan, Mark, and I were left at the picnic table on our own accord with a case of Bud Light and a bottle of vodka.
And I don't really think you need to say any more to that. Because I'm pretty sure it's self-explained. I
Yes.
can't fucking
4 o'clock in the morning later.
Yeah.
Wake
What time
up
did I wake up the next morning?
7 o'clock the next
6
morning.
a.m. Disgusting. It was a great time.
Anyways, let's move on to,
The gay part.
yes, the gay part. Okay. So, Mark, when did you first realize that you were gay? Like, when did you start feeling that?
Well, I started realizing that I was gay in grade 11. And I made the conscious decision in the summer of grade 11 to grade 12 not to come out until I was in university.
Okay.
Because since I am from a small town, I wasn't quite sure how it would be received to
Right.
the public knowledge, especially with, you know, my friends and, you know, the people I went to high school with. For a lot of my life, a lot of people assumed I was gay because of my mannerisms and because, you know, of my voice. And so I spent a long time denying that. And then yeah, I kind of came to accept it at the end of grade 12, and once I had graduated and met so many wonderful people in university, and I thought, you know what, this is the crowd, and I'm going to come out. So then I came out in my first year, university.
Nice.
Yeah.
So did you, always have those mannerisms? Like, when did you kind of, looking back, when did those develop?
I'm not entirely sure when they developed. I've always thought of myself as kind of a very bubbly, effervescent kind of person. I like to talk with my hands, and, you know, I'm just always full energy, full positivity, and...
Yeah.
They're definitely very flamboyant.
Yes, I think that is the right word there, is flamboyant. And I've just always been that way, even since when I was a little kid, but, you know, I always thought that was just me. I never really thought anything of it until I got to high school, and apparently that was very gay. But, you know, like, that was just my experience. I've always kind of just been that way, and I didn't really think anything of it until I started getting bullied for it.
So, you got bullied?
Yeah.
You sounded so happy about that. You're like, oh, you got bullied? Fantastic! That adds a whole new element to the episode.
This can of worms.
Yeah, before we open that ripe-ass can of worms. Was there... So in grade 11, what kind of... Like, was there a point where you kind of, like... where you, like, looked at a guy and you're like, wow, you're hot. Like, I don't like girls.
Chris Hemsworth.
God
Really?
damn!
Was that in grade 11?
Yeah, I saw it. I forget what movie it was, but I saw him very shirtless and in these, like, tight little shorts, and I was like, oh, that's nice.
You do like...
And so then, that was kind of a jumping off point. I was like, oh, okay, well, you know what, I'll put that away for now, and I kind of blocked it out for a little bit, and I was like, you know what, no, you like guys. You like the physique, you like, you know, the, how do I describe it, male form? I like dick, people. And I was like, you know what, and there's nothing wrong with that. So I in all honesty, like I said, I kept it to myself for, you know, a couple of years, just because I thought, you know what, there's no point in, for me personally, and this doesn't speak to everyone's story, but I didn't feel comfortable or safe coming out in that environment. So I waited to a place where I was comfortable. And
like you said, especially growing up in, like, kind of a small rural town like that, conservative based, like...
Exactly, where, you know, everyone kind of knows everyone, and or in some way or form. And also when I got to university, there were so many more cute guys. And I was like, hold on here. I need to open up to myself to a whole new world here. So that was part of it, too.
Got a 60-40 ratio, like... there for every, like, female, there was, like, half a guy at our school.
You know what? It was still good.
Oh, I'm not saying the ones that were there weren't cute. I'm just saying the ratio was definitely disproportionate.
Well, the grinder scene is very different in Aurelia than it is in
Brooklyn?
Yeah.
That I believe.
Yeah. It's, yeah. A lot of interesting people. A lot of very interesting stories. But, yeah, certainly.
2 questions coming at you.
Okay.
Not at the same time, so don't worry. The first one is, did you ever have any... This kind of ties into the last question.
Mm-hmm.
Did you ever have any girl partners, like, in high school before you came out as gay or realized that you were gay?
Actually, that is a very good question. Yes, I did. I had... a couple of girlfriends in elementary school, grade 7, 8.
Yeah.
And then grade 9 and 10, I dated some really, really lovely people who I'm still friends with a couple of them to this day.
Nice.
And they know my story. They know that I'm gay and everything now, and they're all very happy for me. But yeah, I dated quite a few girls, and, you know, I explored that side of my life and that side of me, and I have a lot of really good girlfriends, but I don't see a lot of them in romantic ways anymore. Because that's just not how I feel anymore. Right. Although, if a connection came up, who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? I'm not, you know, full on, it has to be a man. I could go anyway. So,
you'd consider yourself, like, 80% gay, 20% bisexual?
I think that would be a great way to describe. I would even go as far to say, like, pansexual. Yeah.
That's a pretty good way of putting it.
Representation.
Because I'm gonna get
attracted,
a little. Sorry, yeah.
You're attracted to whoever you have a connection with. You see them.
I'm attracted to people. Like, you know, if our personalities mesh and we have fun together and we have a great connection, physically, mentally, spiritually, then you know what? I'm not closed-minded to it.
Okay.
Yeah. And not to get, you know, all political here, but maybe a little bit. But I find gender to be very fluid. I find sexuality to be very fluid. And like I said, in my opinion, if you love someone or you have a good connection, then why the fuck not?
Coon. Cat. Just kidding, it's a cat. Carry on.
We're driving around, by the way.
They know this already.
Oh, good. Okay.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah.
So you mentioned earlier that you got bullied at one point. Was that in high school before, like, kind of before you realized you were gay, or?
Yes. So, I will say this. I was never physically bullied. I was never, like, beaten up in the hallways or anything. But, you know, a lot of people would talk behind my back, and a lot of the guys would, you know, make little comments and stuff, or, you know, just, you know, call me a fag or whatever. Even though at that time I was like, no, I'm not. I'm uber straight, and, you know, I am this person that you want me to be.
It didn't give you any clue that you said, I'm uber straight, and expected people to believe it.
Not at the time. At the time, I thought I was making a very convincing argument.
I love that. But also, I, like, basically did the same thing, so it's fine.
Okay. Because, yeah, like, at the time, you know, I feel like when you're in high school, you just want to fit in.
Yeah.
You just want to, you know, be part of the crowd, and being an individual. I mean, it's changing now, but being an individual in high school is something very different than being an individual in university, post-university, in the work world.
Absolutely.
Where individualism is a really great asset to have.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
So would you say that the bullying in high school had any part to play in you kind of not coming out until university?
Absolutely, 100%. In my mind, I didn't want to give people the satisfaction in high school of, after all those years of trying to deny it and, you know, be convinced that I'm not that way, and, you know, to kind of fall into their point, I didn't want to give them the satisfaction. So I was like, you know what? I'm not going to tell anyone here. They can find it out however they want to, you know, when I'm in university, because I'm never going to see a lot of these people again.
Yeah.
Thank God, good riddance. And, yeah, and I just, like I said, where we went to university, I always felt very welcomed, accepted, and I was very lucky to have that group of friends in university where they really didn't care whether you were gay, straight, bi, pan, trans, anything. Like, they just loved you for who you were.
Yeah.
Not for, you know, who you loved or how you define yourself.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like Lakehead, or really, at least, I can't speak to Thunder Bay having never been there, was very, very prominent with that factor.
Absolutely.
Maybe not necessarily in visible representation. I'm trying to think, like, of people that I knew in terms of staff-wise.
True.
Who were queer on some level, and I don't think there was that. Like, I'm only thinking of a couple names of all the staff that I knew.
Mm-hmm.
Professors and, like, student affairs, et cetera, all included.
Yeah, you're right, yeah.
But everybody was very accepting.
Yeah.
And, like, I never had an experience at Lakehead specifically, like, on campus, where I felt unsafe because I was gay.
And whether it be, you know, like, in class, in residence, at a house party, I never felt uncomfortable or really unwelcomed or truly unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That I can recall at this point in time. But I really don't think so.
Absolutely, I would agree with you 100% there.
Yeah.
Jordan.
Yeah, buddy.
When was the first time you realized that you were... because you didn't start off as non-binary, did you?
No, I didn't.
So when was the first time you realized you were... I don't want to say different.
Different is probably a very accurate word to describe it, though.
Okay, I'll go with different.
I think the first time I ever really, like, regarded questions about my gender, I was probably, like, 6 or 7. I know I was in grade 2, but I don't remember exactly when it was, but, my mom let me cut off all my hair, and so I had, like, a very short hairstyle.
Mm-hmm.
And that was kind of the first time that I had a lot of, like, kids in particular being like, oh, you look like a boy. And things like that. And being out with, like, my parents and being like, oh, your son is adorable, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I never really, like, thought much of it. Because I was like, oh, it's because I have short hair. But it doesn't matter because girls can have short hair, and I know this. And then after that, it never really stopped.
Right.
And it got to the point where, like, there was a few good years there where my father would only refer to me as his son. And I think that was probably one of the most confusing things for me. Because I was like, you know the truth, and yet you're not acknowledging it. Well, the truth at that time, I should say. And yet you're still not acknowledging it. So what does that make me? And then as things progressed, I choked. As things progressed and my relationship with him became less and less of a relationship, I kind of disregarded that, and it was still just continual comments of like, oh, like, you look like a boy, oh, he's doing great, when people were like referring to me, kind of thing. I had a few encounters at school with, like, teachers who didn't know who I was, who would be like, oh, like, the boys have to go over here, or, like, the boys need to do this or whatever, and I was like, well, that's not me, so I'm not gonna do that. And it wasn't until I got into, like, high school that I kind of started questioning who I was a lot more. And just kind of thinking, like, you know, I don't know if I identify as female, but I didn't know where to go from there.
Right.
I was just, like, very uncomfortable calling myself a girl. And then, when I was 15, I came out as bi, because that was kind of when I realized that girls were really hot. And then when I was 18, I came out as pan, because that was when I realized, like, fuck, everybody's hot. I don't really care how they identify. And around that time is when I kind of started exploring the gender thing a little bit more. And I had a group of very supportive friends who knew that I was exploring that and were willing to support me until I could kind of figure out exactly what I wanted and if I wanted to put a label on it. And so I'd have a couple of friends who would ask me day by day how I was feeling and adjust pronouns accordingly. And I was doing my own research, and then when I turned 20, that sounds accurate, I decided to officially come out. I had settled personally on being gender fluid, which is basically just like you kind of float across the gender spectrum day by day. And I had settled on using they, them pronouns because, and I say settled on not as if like I like just chose that because it was the last resort, but it was what made me feel most comfortable knowing where I was going with my life and who I was hanging out with and what my situation was.
Yeah.
To make it easier for me, I think is probably the best way to describe it.
Right.
And so I came out to a bunch of my friends, and then
Heyo.
hey, and so they were all super cool about it. Shout out to all my friends for that one. You know who you are. And then I came out to my family a little while after, and people were okay with it. And I used the umbrella term of non-binary in order to kind of better describe the neutrality of my gender, that it happens a lot.
Right.
And kind of alleviate the whole day-by-day changing, because I wasn't about to expect a lot of people to be like, how are you feeling today? What pronouns are you using today? Because sometimes, like, I didn't even know where I was floating and what made me feel most comfortable. So yeah, that's kind of my background there.
I find something that, if I may just build on something really quick.
Yeah.
Something that you said, which I really agreed with, was like, even coming out as a gay man, I found that I didn't ever meet necessarily resistance towards it, but uneducation.
Yeah.
Of people not really, understanding what a gay person is, what that sexuality, what that feeling, what that's all about. And that's such a big topic right now, I know, with non-binary individuals and gender fluid people. And I always felt that, I was never met with any hate. I was just met with, ignorance is not the right word, but just people who just didn't know what that meant.
Yeah.
Right. Even now, I'm still bad with all the pronouns and stuff, and like, I'm learning and building on that. But
every day, right?
Every day, but
Yeah.
like, I still every once in a while, I'll just like, it's natural to whip out the he or the she.
Because that's kind of our go-to, and when,
Yeah.
That's
we're,
how we
we're
grew
brought
up.
up.
Yeah. But at the same time, it's like doing it more and more. It's like and going into like the people who are like absolute dicks about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, realistically, it's not that hard with a little bit of effort to change what you do.
Yeah.
How you say things. Even just stick with their fucking name then at that point.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's kind of like my number one go-to, especially when I like work with kids.
So
This is not my drink.
You just drank my iced tea, didn't you?
I did. There you go. This is my drink.
Well,
I think I would like to get into some fun stories now.
okay.
Sorry, that sounded bad, but I mean, like, okay. Anyways,
Didn't sound bad. You're good.
Yeah,
You're
no,
good.
Yeah.
it sounded like the other stuff wasn't fun, but it is fun. It's all fun.
You want to keep digging or just move on, Andrew?
I'm just gonna move on.
Oh god.
Oh, I'm cutting that out.
Leave it in.
Alright, so let's get into some of the stories about your guys' dating life. And so, like, Mark, what was your first non-heterosexual date like, or experience, whatever you did on your first?
Well, I think we should first point out the difference between a date and a hookup. Because I certainly hooked up with guys before I started actually seriously dating them.
Okay, well, let's start with the first hookup.
Well, my first hookup was it was when I was in university. It was in first year, and I had just gotten onto the wonderful world of Grindr.
Oh.
Not that wonderful, but it was fun at the time, and everything's new and exciting. So I met up with this guy. We had been chatting for a while, and won't divulge any details, I guess, specifically towards him. But we ended up hooking up in the back of a pet store.
In the back of a pet store?
In the back of a pet store. This was my first sexual encounter with a man.
And then there were puppies.
And honestly, I have to say the guy was very respectful. It was all very nice, and it was, we kissed, and it was fun. Did some sexy oral stuff, and just to get into some detail. But
okay, I gotta build on that a sec.
Yes.
A pet store.
Okay, so again, obviously, I will not say his name, but he managed a pet store.
Oh, okay.
So he was closing up one night, and he said, "Hey, I'm like closing up. Do you want?" And I could drive at the time. I had my car at university with me. So he was like, "I'm just in Aurelia, and do you want to just come over?" And I was like, "Yeah, sure. I'll help you close up." Because I was young and naive, and I was like, "Yeah, I'll help you actually close up." Little did I know he'd pull me into the back room, and things would go from there. But yeah, so that was my first sexual encounter with a man, and my first date would actually be with a guy, which was actually a couple months after that. It wasn't too long after that, in my first year again. And he would turn out to be my first boyfriend.
Oh.
And
so not to expose the your number per se, but how many hookups would you say were in between the first and your first date?
Also a good question. I would say there was 0.
Really?
Yeah. Because I felt like when I kind of did all that stuff the first time, I was like, well, I don't really need to just go out there and do that again. I want something more out of it, like some more connection with a person, rather than just like, wham bam, thank you ma'am. Right? Thank you, sir. But yeah, so I wanted something more deeper, more meaningful. So I started looking a little more seriously online, and I found this really great, someone who seemed like they were a really great person, I think is a better way of wording it.
Right.
I agree.
Things went along very well at the beginning, and, we had lots of good times, lots of fun, and, things didn't end well. And I have to say, though, I lost my virginity to him.
Oh.
Yes, and it was very romantic. It was on a pier, and there was a sunset. I mean, what more can you ask for?
That's pretty great.
That's a pretty great first time story.
Yeah. No.
And it was very romantic, and he was, he had a lot of good points to him too, although the negative outweighs the positive. But
So, is it okay to ask what the negative was on that one?
Yeah, absolutely. I think, to begin with, it was my first relationship with a man.
Right.
And so I was very new to the whole scene, the whole world of, of dating men, other gay men. Actually, he was bisexual, actually.
Right.
And a lot of it, I think, had to do with my naivety and kind of just not getting what I needed, and I wasn't giving what he wanted, which was, a person who was there 24/7. We lived about 45 minutes apart. I was the only one with a car. It became very dependent and codependent in a lot of ways. For me emotionally, and for him emotionally, but also for like drives and stuff. And, and he was into experimenting with drugs and stuff, which I had never really been into very much, but I always thought to each their own, There's no judgment. But we were just two, I think, very different people who met at a very interesting time in life for both of us. And he was younger than me too. I was 17 when we met, and he was 16.
Cradle robber.
How dare you? But yeah, so I was 17, he was 16, and then I turned 18 that year, and he turned 17. So we were a year apart, but I was in my first year of university, he was in his last year of high school, and I think that mindset, that separation at the time was just enough to be like, yeah, no, this isn't working. We're on in two very different worlds.
Right.
Yeah, I feel like that separation alone would just be like so huge anyway.
Yeah, and it turned out to be even a more bigger divide than I think either of us had anticipated. And yeah. But you know what? I will say this, especially for a first relationship, I learned a lot from it. Certainly, I learned what I like and don't like, both, with dating and, in the bedroom, and with a lot of things. I learned a lot about myself through that relationship.
Yeah, I feel like that goes for heterosexual first relationships too.
Yeah.
You learn a lot about what you're looking for, what you don't want, what your likes and your...
And that's something I'll say in general is no matter how you identify who you are, how you feel, relationships are difficult.
Yeah.
Relationships are tough. And you know what? No matter which community you belong to or how, like I said, how you feel, how you identify, relationships are going to be tough. There's going to be roller coasters. It's going to be up and downs. And I think we can all attest to that, sitting here.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, definitely.
And yeah, but yeah.
All right, I'll come back to you in a hot minute here. Jordan, we'll start again the same. What was your first hookup with a guy, girl, otherwise, whatever?
Yeah, my first hookup that would be classified as non-heterosexual was with a person who identified as female. And we had agreed to just be like friends with benefits kind of thing. So we were really good friends, but we didn't want a relationship, but like we weren't opposed to sex.
Right.
And I was also in my first year of university. And so we would hang out a lot, and then like we had a big mutual group of friends, and so we would hang out a lot, and then a lot of times we would do like, oh, like I'm tired, I'm gonna go to bed, or like something like we'd wait until everybody else went to bed or whatever kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
And then we would hook up. There was nothing like overtly like wild about it necessarily.
Right.
It became a point in like our friendship where we were like borderlining on relationship level.
Yeah.
Just with like the things that we would do in terms of not just like, you know, we would be hanging out a lot more alone and not necessarily hooking up. We would like literally like sleep together.
Mm-hmm. Creating that intimacy.
Yeah, there was a lot of that intimacy,
Yeah.
I think. But we would just never go out on dates. Like we would never go out somewhere alone.
Right.
Like it was always with our group of friends, if we were going out. And so, like, I don't regret that at all. Like, I don't have anything negative to say either. Like, we just kind of both, when the summer came around, we both kind of agreed that, like, it would be more difficult because neither of us had a car at that point, and I was going home and she was going home as well.
And distance is so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so for us both to be able to like get cars and then meet up because we lived pretty far away was difficult.
Right.
So yeah, we just kind of agreed to mutually stop, and then we revisited it a couple times when school started up again, but it just wasn't the same anymore. And so yeah, that's kind of how that went. I think if that covers that.
Yeah. So, what was then your first non-heterosexual relationship?
So, my first... It gets a little complicated at this point.
Right, because that would, like, because your first relationship might have been with a guy, no?
Yes, I had probably 5 or 6 relationships through high school, all with guys.
Right.
I had what would technically be considered a relationship with a girl, a couple girls. But it never, like, it would always be like those, like, fling-based things. Like, you know, we would hang out for a week and then be done kind of thing. It never really went anywhere, right?
Right.
So in that sense, I would classify like my first non-heterosexual relationship also in my first year of university. That whole story is just kind of an interesting one for me.
Right.
So I was with a couple of friends, and I had a crush on this girl, like, not gonna lie, but like it wasn't anything major. I wasn't sure if I wanted to act on it or anything like that. And so I was with a couple of friends and we were just hanging out one night, and I don't know how it got brought up, but her, like my not girlfriend, soon to be girlfriend at the time, and I started cuddling, and our one friend was like, oh, are you two together? And we were like, no. And she was like, good, because that's like weird. And I was like, what do you mean? She's like, well, I just don't know if like you two would be like a good couple kind of thing. And I was like, why? And she was like, well, like,
please elaborate.
And she was kind of hesitant on her reasoning.
Yeah.
And I think it was a little bit of like a combination between like culture shock and like seeing two people who identified as female at that time kind of be affectionate with each other in more than just like a friends kind of way.
Right.
And then on top of that, like seeing it being the two of us specifically, I think was a little bit weird because we were very different people. Like this
Yes, you were.
girl and I.
Mark attests.
Yeah.
I do agree.
Yeah. And so we were like, okay, like whatever, no big deal. And then we ended up, I think we were going to get drinks or something from my room, and this girl came with me and was like, I'm really fucking pissed off about this because like, why can't we be together? And I was like, what do you mean? And she was like, well, let's just like fucking prank her and say, yeah, we lied to you, we are together. And just to like make her uncomfortable and see that it's normal for like two girls to be able to date kind of thing.
Right.
And I was like sure, like, you know, I consider that a little bit of my naivety as well at the time. I'm not sure if I would do something similar now. But like, again, it is what it is and it happened. So yeah, like we started this thing as like a joke, and then I think like maybe like 20 minutes after that we had another conversation, the two of us.
Yeah.
And it was basically just like, okay, like I'm not comfortable with doing this just as a joke. So either we're gonna come clean or we're actually gonna date. And she was actually like, what the fuck, like let's just date then. And so that's kind of what we did. And
This was in your second year, right?
no, this was first year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so we dated for about a month, and then it kind of went downhill, I guess.
Right.
Almost immediately. And I take a lot of ownership for that because I had a couple of external things that were happening that was definitely affecting my ability to be in a relationship.
Mm-hmm.
And then our personalities just really didn't line up on top of that.
Right.
So yeah, so it just kind of like fizzled and burned really fast. But yeah, no, like, again, I learned a lot. And I mean, I hope she's doing well. I don't speak with her anymore. And I think that's also for the best. But, yeah.
Very well put.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, what is your first kiss that actually meant something to you? That wasn't just like a truth or dare or a peck on the cheek, you know, that you kind of really felt something toward it.
Yeah, absolutely. My first kiss that actually really meant something to me was actually in my first year of university. Obviously, like as mentioned, I had kissed a lot of guys, like, and a lot of girls at that point. And, you know, this kiss, as weird as it is to chalk it up to a kiss, like, when I kissed this guy for the first time, I don't know how to describe it really, but, like, it was almost like a lot of things kind of clicked.
Yes. They go to the, like, they'll say it was like fireworks, but I think that is more accurately described as something clicked. And it was just like, yes.
Like, it kind of felt like that piece of the puzzle was in. I wouldn't say the puzzle was completed, but like, you know, you're looking for that last edge piece or that one piece to complete like that part of the picture that you're looking for.
Yes.
That's what I got.
I 100% agree with that.
Yeah.
100%.
It was really cute, actually, when it happened, because I was up in my room doing homework one day, and it was around dinner time, and he had texted me and was like, hey, like, are you in your room? Because we run residence together. And I was like, yep, like, I'm just doing homework before I go grab dinner. And he was like, okay, like, stay in your room. And I was like, oh, why? And he was like, well, because I'm leaving soon, and I want to kiss you before I go. And I was like, well, I'm not necessarily opposed to this. And so I hung out in my room, and about 20 minutes later, he showed up, and he had brought me dinner.
Aww.
And he was like, you know, if you want to eat, you can eat and like finish up your homework and stuff, and then I want to like hang out. And I was like, well, okay. So I think I ended up eating and stuff, and then we started watching a movie, and we kissed, and you know, needless to say, I don't need to talk about the rest of what happened. But we didn't actually have sex.
Oh, okay.
Well, we. Okay, hold on.
Well,
Renege on that point.
You
Back
didn't have
up.
sex that night.
No, we did. We just didn't finish sex that night.
Oh, yes. I feel like you could elaborate on that story.
Okay. To anyone who knows the story, you immediately know what I'm talking about, too. So yeah, we were, doing it.
we were doing it.
We were having sexual intercourse. And I'm so sorry, Mom. And all of a sudden, like, bang, bang, bang. Jordan! And I'm like,
Who in
shit. Because I immediately knew who it was. And immediately knew what was going on. And so I, like, went to the door and was like...
What the hell you want?
They knew that I was in there as well. And so I was like, hey, what's up? And they were like, do you want to hang out? And I was like, not particularly.
Not at this point in time.
And they were like, okay, bye, and left. And I was like, cool. And luckily, like, the mood hadn't been killed yet. And so we went back to doing our thing. And then, like, 10 minutes later, knock, knock, knock. Jordan! Yes! And this time there were two people there. They were like, do you want anything from Tam's? And I was like, no, I'm okay. I'm gonna go now. And they were
Goodbye.
like, do you have a boy in there? And I was like, I'm gonna go now. And, yep, so then they left. And then, like, I shit you not, probably 15 minutes later, it happened again. And she was like, will you take me to the park? And I was like, fuck. And since this was the third time that we had been interrupted, and at that point we were like, okay, like, we're kind of not getting anywhere anyway with all these interruptions, so we might as well just fucking bail. And so I was like, alright. So then me and this person that I was having sex with, and the person who was knocking at my door multiple times, all went to the park. And yeah, that's that story.
That was that night.
Yep.
Interesting.
Yes.
So, Mark, what was your first kiss that meant something?
For me, it was with a girl.
Oh,
Yes.
spicy.
It was,
See, I find that interesting that Jordan's first kiss that meant something was with a boy, and Mark's first kiss that meant something was with a girl.
well, that's what I was saying earlier, is like, I find, because me and this person that I had a really meaningful kiss with, we were very good friends for quite a few years, and we had been friends, so we had a really great base relationship. And that's what I was saying before, like, if you have a really good connection with someone, it can mean the world to you.
Absolutely.
And so I was in grade 10, and we were just, like, me and my friend, we were just hanging out one day, and we were kind of, holding hands and stuff, just like being friends, just having a good time. I think we were at a park. This was a long time ago. I'm older than both these people, by the way. I am.
Okay, barely.
I'm still old. But I believe we were at a park, and it was a really nice sunny day, and we just started kissing, and nothing more happened from that. But after that moment, that's when we kind of started having a relationship, and yeah, it just like Jordan was saying, it really felt like it was kind of something that clicked. It felt really right, really romantic, got the heart going. It was just something very special between two good friends and later boyfriend and girlfriend. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it was really magical. Yeah.
All right, so what would you say is your most embarrassing gay moment? Whether it be in a hookup, whether it be just generally talking to someone. What's your most embarrassing moment?
Can I just use my
what just happened?
The last story?
Yeah, we'll accept that one. That's a pretty good one.
Although, if I'm being completely honest, that is not my most embarrassing moment.
Oh?
Yeah. You gotta give me a minute to actually pick one, but...
To compose. I know, I was thinking the same thing though, like there has been multiple situations where I'm like, ooh, this isn't good.
Feel free to elaborate on a couple.
Okay, here's one. This was a hookup situation.
Okay.
And this was, gosh, a couple of years ago. It wasn't at university, actually. I was back home. And so me and this guy had been talking for a while. He was an older gentleman. Mm-hmm. And very nice man. Not saying he was mean or anything. But I remember I walked into his house and he was laying on the floor. You know what? Wait.
Help, I've fallen and I can't get up.
Honestly, that's where my brain went.
Wait, I have a better one.
Oh my god.
Wait,
I have a better one than that one.
First.
He can't leave us, he's on the floor. Does he get up?
Yeah.
The man was okay. But he was, and this is nothing against the BDSM community, to each their own, everyone's welcome and, great to their own kinks. He was in total head to toe leather. And he had a bunch of, it was like almost walking into like those sex dungeons that you hear about, and the whips and everything were all hung up on the walls.
Was it like a latex suit, like a
full latex mask, suit, everything.
Oh, God.
He was in, and again, to each their own. This is not what personally I like very much, or something that turns me on.
Yeah.
And since Jordan said it, I'll throw it there too. Sorry, Mom. But in all honesty, I walked in and I said to him, no thank you, and I walked out. Never spoke again. And he never messaged me or anything after, which was fine. But yeah, that was a really weird one.
I do genuinely think, like, if you're going to hook up and you haven't already had that conversation, that would be a lot for anyone to process.
Yeah,
see, I
that's
would
a,
even
that's
if you
a
were
big
into
first
that.
meeting.
If I had gotten some like context and found that out, and we had been talking for at least 2 weeks.
Yeah.
About what we liked, but he never said one darn thing about that.
Yeah.
He said that he was more submissive and he liked to be dominated, but I didn't think he meant in that
full latex bodysuit.
Yeah, I didn't know that
Get the whips
meant
out.
all that. So that was certainly an interesting situation.
No, that'd be quite the surprise to walk into.
Yeah.
My heart kind of dropped, and I was like, I didn't even know what to say, so I was like, no, thank you. At least I was polite.
Yeah.
Just walked out.
And can I tell one more?
Absolutely. I'm
Okay, it's
still
another-
trying to chalk up a lot of them.
It's another hookup story.
Naturally.
Right, yeah. So, where do I start? So, okay, I guess I'll start where I usually do. We were talking on Grindr. I think that's usually a pretty safe place to start. So we were talking on Grindr, and we had been talking for a while, like the previous guy. And so I eventually, he's like, why don't you come over tonight? We'll hang out, whatever. You can sleep over if you want, if you're comfortable. Very, very nice. So I go over. We're playing some video games and stuff because he was a big gamer, and which is fine. And we were having a lot of fun, just hanging out. And then, things start getting hot and heavy. We start kissing, stuff like that. And he's like, well, I'm going to go jump in the shower. Do you want to join me? And I was like, well, sure. Why not? Join him. I don't even think I've told you. Well, I don't think I've told you either of these stories.
No.
Maybe this one. I'm not sure. But so we're in the shower and, we're kissing and stuff. Man passes out.
Oh, Jesus.
Out of nowhere. He just starts leaning against the wall, and I can see he's going a bit pale, and I'm like, are you okay? And he's, like, blurbling, like slurring. He couldn't get his words together, and then he, like, leans, and he starts sliding down the wall.
Oh, fuck.
Till he's in a heap on the ground, and I'm like, okay, emergency situation. First thing, turn off the shower. We don't want him to drown or die. So I turn off the shower, throw a towel on myself. By the time I get to my cell phone, because I was going to call 911, he was awake, and he was like, what are you doing? And I'm like, you just passed out. He was like, oh my God, did I? He's like, oh yeah, that happens sometimes. And
that would have been a good, warning in our first 2 weeks of conversation.
Yeah, hey, this happens sometimes.
Especially if it's a natural thing.
Yeah, and I was just my heart was pounding. I didn't know what to do. And, anyways, we ended up hooking up, and then I left the next day. But it scared the shit out of me. I don't know if it was necessarily embarrassing, but...
No, that's quite the story, though.
Crap out of me. I thought I told you that one before.
No, I don't think so.
The more you know. See, and me and Jordan, we're still learning about things about each other.
Honestly, yeah.
In 5 years.
Sometimes I forget certain stories, and then somebody will say something, and it brings back a lot. And I'm like, oh
yeah.
Oh.
Oh.
Okay. Anyway, let's see. Embarrassing stories on my part. Okay, does it have to be things that were that I did that were embarrassing, or just things that just happened? I know Mark just kind of told me.
Yeah, things that just happened.
Okay, I think one of
whatever you feel.
The most.
It's a good story.
Embarrassing moments that I think I've ever had was I was. Yeah, I mean, besides the story that I just told, because oh my God. I was dating this guy, and I say dating is a strong word there, because it really wasn't dating.
A loose term.
Yeah, so I was dating this guy, and we were hanging out at my house, and we were in my basement. We started making out, whatever, no big deal. And then he bit my nose.
Oh, God.
Full on stopped kissing me, put his face to my nose, and bit it.
Why would you move from the lips to the nose? That's just not a...
Where's this judgment call coming
good
from?
Progression.
And I was very much so what the fuck? Because I really didn't know what to, I was this is weird. I don't like this, question mark? There was nothing...
Question mark?
Well, there was nothing sexy about it. I was was this supposed to be sexy and you're just bad at it? Because but no, it was just very, very...
My nose is not an erotic
zone.
My nose
is not, yeah, that's literally what it was. I was just kind of okay.
Could have at least moved to the neck or something.
Yes.
Yeah. Here we are. That is definitely one of the most embarrassing moments I think I've ever had.
Just going off of that topic, I did have a guy suck my chin one time. I did not find that erotic.
Oh, God.
Yeah.
I gotta say, luckily, I've had no, hold on, let me think.
Okay, you fucked a pregnant woman.
I've had, oh, what?
You fucked a pregnant woman. Dead.
Okay, well, I didn't know she was pregnant at the time.
You also weren't the baby daddy.
Just to clarify.
Yes, I was not the baby daddy. I might as well dabble in that subject for a little bit. Yes, I was talking to this girl. We'd been talking for a couple weeks. We'd been on outings here and there, hooking up. Mm-hmm. And then the one weekend she came over to stay over at my place. And oh my God, that's a human.
Yeah, and a live one.
Okay. So she came over to stay at my place for the night, and we were I had just finished orally pleasing her, if you will. we're moving on.
I don't know why I found that so funny.
Worst way you could phrase that.
Pleasing her. So you were licking the pussy.
Yeah, I was eating her right the
Having
fuck
a
out.
snack.
Right, yeah.
Anyways, we move on. Oh my god!
That was painful. That was painful.
We moved on, and she... Okay.
I got scared about that one too.
Why do I keep getting all the interruptions?
Oh god.
Okay.
Okay, so you were hungry.
Yes. So we moved on, and I moved up, and she was like, "Just so you know, you can come in me if you want."
Oh,
And I'm like,
cool.
"Okay, like you have like a female condom, like you have an IUD, like," and I just obviously I didn't want to take that risk either way, so I didn't.
Good for you. Safe sex, kids.
Yeah, right?
Always a safe sex. Get tested regularly,
Yes.
especially if you have multiple partners.
Yes. Anyways, so we finished, and she kind of got weird, so like I kind of stopped seeing her after that. She's big into the coke,
Yeah.
and like had some other mental issues, anger issues actually as well. She told me about the many ex-boyfriends she beat up and punched.
Oh, good times.
I was like, okay, I don't want to get on your bad side.
Yeah.
So anyways, a few months later, I found out that she was pregnant through Facebook.
Now, at first, did this scare you shitless a little bit?
A little bit, because it scared me at first,
Okay.
because I was like trying to do the math in my head.
Right.
That's just a bad idea.
And then I figured out that like where she was, like it couldn't have been, like the math finally worked out in my head.
Mm-hmm.
But that is why she told me I could
There's not really anything that way.
come inside of her.
Well, yeah, I guess because she probably
What's
knew.
straight?
What?
What's straight?
You said there's not really anything that way.
No, what's straight though?
Well, I don't know. Well, I already turned.
It's too late now.
We're going for it.
Oh.
Oh, just kidding. If I put it in actual reverse, not forward,
It helps.
it works better.
I will maps this in a sec.
Yeah. I thought he was gonna do that.
But yeah, that's why she told me basically I could come in here, because she couldn't get pregnant because she was already pregnant.
Jeez. Well, there you go. That is straight people.
Accurate.
Might have given the baby a concussion. I don't know.
No.
I probably just got like. Yeah, I probably did get a concussion.
Oh God.
I'm trying to think like another like embarrassing moment.
I have a good date story, and I know I've told you this one before. I went on a date with this guy. He seemed very normal.
Yeah.
I think I should preface this whole story with that.
I feel like you've had a couple stories that start out with he seemed like he was normal.
Okay, I will say something just as also a disclaimer. A lot of people you come across online come across as very nice people,
Yeah.
and really have not been thus far impressed in the past 6 years.
Right.
Well, a couple have been okay. That's not true. There's been a few good ones, but anyway. But
I feel like that's the issue with online dating, though.
well,
It's very hard to.
That's the problem. I've always said this: for 100 toads, you find one gem.
Right.
Like one decent person who knows how to carry on a conversation, and who you actually will meet up with, or hang out with, or whatever, or even think seriously of. So this guy, I thought that he was a really nice guy, and we were having good talks. We talked for about a month before we actually hung out, and And this was up in Aurelia. And this was also my first year No, it would have been second because I wasn't with my first boyfriend anymore.
Right.
I was getting back on the scene. This was my first date back on the scene after my first relationship ended. So we meet up at Tim Hortons because, you know, I figured I feel like for first dates you should probably meet somewhere public.
Mm-hmm.
Especially if you've been talking online and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
even if you know them, but like...
Yeah. So we meet up at Tim's and, you know, we're talking and, you know, like a lot of conversations, he asked me what I do for a living. And I said, well, like I'm in university, I'm in school. That's basically what I do. And I said, you were telling me that you're in the disposal industry, which I took to mean as a garbage man.
Right.
Well, he was not in the disposing of garbage per se. He was in the disposing of roadkill.
Oh.
No judgment. No judgment. That's
I
fine.
thought you were going to say like straight up human bodies, and I got
That's
very
honestly,
concerned for
that's
a
what I
moment.
thought.
Well, I had
you'd
to
say,
lead
too.
the listeners with some tantalizing thoughts.
It's true. You gotta like, you know,
Gotta keep the-
sensational
you
media
know.
over here.
But so that's fine. I was like, oh, that's, you know, I've never really known anyone who did that. But, you know, a very important job, keeps people safe and, you know, keeps our roads clear and everything. So as the night progresses, we're continuing to talk, but every single topic that I try to get away from the topic of dead animals, somehow we end up back on the subject of dead animals.
Oh, God.
So, eventually he reveals the fact to me that he's a taxidermist too. He stuffs dead animals that he finds on the road and he keeps them in his home.
Interesting.
So again, I'm really trying to think, you know, don't judge. People are, I guess, into that thing sometimes. And, you know, if that's a hobby, that's their thing. But this guy was absolutely fucking obsessed with dead animals, stuffing dead animals. He wanted to get into killing and then stuffing dead animals. And then that was the point where I was like, okay, I'm feeling a little like a Jeffrey Dahmer vibe here.
See, it's one thing if you have an appreciation for it, but like...
Yes, as like an art form or whatever, because I know there is a lot of skill that goes into that.
Yeah.
As I learned.
But if you have an obsession...
And I would, like, you know, I find, like, in a conversation, it's okay to touch on things, but, you know, especially when you're getting the vibes that someone else is not very interested, like, move the conversation along, you know what I mean?
Like, bail out while you're still ahead kind of vibe.
Yeah, so... Anyway, the night he ended up talking my ear off about taxidermy for about 2 hours until I finally said, you know, I really should probably get going home.
Yeah.
Never spoke to him again because I felt like I was going to get murdered. Plus, he was a little creepy on top of it all. Anyway,
That's fair.
I thought that was a weird date.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was trying really hard, and I was trying to be very open-minded, but no. And then also, that was my first date back after my first relationship, and I was like, should I just give up?
Not
Is
the
this
vibes
what
you were
the
going
future
for.
has in store for me?
Okay, I have a question.
Okay.
And I think because we based this episode around growing up gay in conservative small towns, and then we literally haven't really touched on that at all.
That's true.
And so I feel like we just need to direct the conversation back to that point and be like, so what was it like? You know, and what is it like knowing that we both are still in situations like that and being gay in conservative towns?
Currently, like, what's the current situation?
What's your current situation?
I'll go first.
Yeah, I kind of asked the
Okay.
question in an attempt to get you to go first.
Okay. Well, I have to say, for my small town, I've never necessarily felt uncomfortable where I live. I have a very supportive and loving family who are right there with me from the moment I came out, and I will say too, I came out to my friends long before my family. Well, not long, a couple months. And I've always had a really great support system and really great friends who supported me as well. So I never felt the effects in that way where I felt, you know, put down or looked at differently because of it. I have to say, I feel very lucky overall that I've never had a super negative experience. Other than being bullied in high school, like verbally bullied, I really don't think I've had a super negative experience about being gay or about even my hometown. Like, I feel like it's almost, and just comparatively, like it's almost closer to Toronto a little bit than even up here where we are. And I don't know if that makes a difference, but everyone has always seemed to be pretty okay and welcoming with it. Even my nan, once I kind of explained to her what a gay person was, she was like, oh, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, I've been very lucky in that sense, and, everyone's journey and experience is different. But I have to say, I can't complain too much or be negative about it, because I really haven't had that many hardships.
That's good.
Yeah.
What about you, Jordan?
I feel like I align with a lot of, like, what Mark has said. I've definitely, like, never had any, like, major incidents when out in the community. I've definitely been called a fag before. And a lot of times it was more, like, less so just, like, people knew and would call me because they knew and they were trying to hurt me, and more so, like, it was an already emotionally charged situation. And so, like, I've been called that at hockey a couple of times, like, gotten a couple of hockey fights about that, but that's probably beside the point. I think one of, like, the most, like, uncomfortable moments that I've had happen to me a few times is, like, when I've been in relationships that look like they are same-sex relationships. And so whether it be I'm presenting as more female and, dating a female at the time, or, on the flip side, presenting as more masculine and dating a man or somebody who identifies more so as male, or is also presenting masculine at the time. And we are, like, walking down the street or whatever and holding hands, or, like, show some form of public affection, and having people either do that double take, or they, like, I've had a couple people, like, drive by, like, boyfriends in particular at the time when I was presenting masculine, and they've slowed their cars down and stuck their head out the window and just, like, stared at us as we walked by. And so that's kind of, it's not so much like, oh my god, this is wrong, like, being gay is wrong for me. It's more so like, okay, it's like, 20 whatever year it was in. Yeah. Like, yes, we exist. Mm-hmm. Like, you don't need, like, we're not show animals, like, kind of thing. Like, put your head back in your window, drive the speed limit because you're on a straightaway, and there's no stop signs or lights around.
I can't remember. You had something similar like that with older gentleman that was closer to us at one point, didn't you?
Me?
Yeah.
No, like, it happened a couple of times when that was a thing. Like, nothing more so direct.
Right.
I've had people misgender my partners.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the time by accident.
Yeah.
I would hope, like, all the time by accident, but there are a couple situations in which I wasn't necessarily sure.
I'm sorry to interrupt. Can I ask you a question?
Absolutely.
Do you ever feel like people purposely, with malicious intent, misgender you?
We might cut this part out of the episode.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Sorry, I was just...
Yeah, no, I think on some level...
Yeah?
There's some people who do it.
Okay.
I don't
want to be mean? It's not just like a...
Yeah, I'm not necessarily sure if it would be, like, to be mean, quote-unquote.
Okay.
more so than to be like, I don't agree with what you're doing, therefore I'm not going to kind of...
So more of a stance almost.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's not like a direct attack on me, it's more a direct attack
I'm taking a position.
the movement.
Right.
The idea.
I was curious, I have to say. Because like we were talking about before, you know, and like you were saying too, we hope that it's by accident when you do misgender someone. I know, like when you and your partner began going together, I misgendered him a couple of times. And I always felt terrible about that. But then, you know, it was a learning curve. And and I think as long as people are open and willing to learn and work on themselves and continue to better themselves, as we were talking about earlier, you know, I think you do have to take it with a grain of salt, I guess, sometimes. But, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah, I've never really found, like, it's happened maliciously. I've definitely, like, had people kind of, I would say, purposefully misgender me.
Okay.
And, I mean, like, I think there's been some instances in which I've done it to myself, almost, in some weird way.
Okay.
Where, you know, you have that situation where you're not 100% comfortable or sure you're going to be safe if you make that statement, so you just kind of you don't make it apparent, and you tell the people who know, like, hey, this is how I'm going, even if I don't feel that way.
I have to say, in similar situations, obviously it's not the same, but a lot of times if I'm in a social setting where I've met new people, I don't come right out and say, you know, like, oh, I'm gay. If I'm asked, or, you know, if somebody asks me politely, you know, are you dating anyone, or, you know, anything like that, then I'll be like, no, I'm not seeing any guys right now, I'm not seeing anyone, if I feel comfortable.
Absolutely.
You know, it's, although we live in a very progressive time, 2021, and I'm grateful for a lot of things, it's still, you know, I wouldn't say taboo, but it's still a little, what's the word I'm looking for? Risque? No, doesn't really fit it either.
I say uncomfortable in a sense that it's not uncomfortable for us, but uncomfortable for others.
Right. Yes. Actually, that's a very good way of putting it. Yeah.
And not to say that as in, like, straight people are assholes and they're not comfortable with
not
us.
Not at all,
just, like,
no.
If you haven't had that experience and that exposure.
Or if you're from a small town where there aren't a lot of gay people or trans people or non-binary people, you don't have that experience, and you don't really have that any sort of education about it.
Exactly.
Or even knowledge sometimes.
It brings it back to the whole education and knowledge thing. I feel like if they start bringing it up as a norm in educational backgrounds, then like even when I was growing up, it was starting to become more and more of a normal thing. And even I'm gonna throw a little racism thing in here. Like, even when I was growing up, I never even thought about the different races that were within our school. I grew up in Bowmanville at first, and there was plenty of different races at that school. I never once thought any differently, that they were any different from us. Growing up. Yeah. So like I didn't really grow up with a whole lot of racism until until we moved rurally, and then into the conservative farmer town, and then and then I kind of started to realize that, like, this is what racism is. Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of ties into the whole gay LGBTQ community educationally.
Yeah, no, I think, like, my biggest point for the whole education aspect that I try to tell a lot of people is, if you're curious, ask. And I know for me, you know, if you ask me straight up, you may not word it in the best possible way, but I'm also the type of person who's like, okay, sure, that was, like, slightly offensive in the wording. A, I will let you know, but B, I'm going to do it in a way to be like, hey, you know, if you have any more questions about this, maybe next time you ask it like this. And then I will try to answer whatever question you have just asked me is.
Because you don't need to attack people when I think it's just simple not understanding. There's a way of, in my opinion, of explaining something about yourself that is very personal to you without having to fly off the handle, although I do understand the frustration sometimes.
Absolutely, yeah.
For sure. And again, going with education, I think, like we've been saying this whole time, you just have to be respectful about the whole thing. Because, like I was saying, it's very personal to people, their sexuality, their how they identify with their gender and their relationship to themselves. Which is, I've gotten into recently, like if I meet someone in a certain setting, I'll ask how they identify. Like, what pronouns do you go by?
Yeah.
Because sometimes I simply don't know. And, if you just tell me, then I will do my absolute darndest to, really respect your pronouns and respect, where you're coming from and identifying yourself as.
Yeah. And, like, it's definitely, like, a big push now, particularly with pronouns, just to get people to, like, start using them and putting them in your bios on social media, putting them in, like, your Zoom names.
Yeah. On your email tags. Yeah.
All of that. Just to normalize it. And to make it be like, okay, so, this is Mark, I'm meeting him online. Oh, his pronouns are he, him.
And
okay, cool.
I will say too, like I've been ragging a bit on Grindr tonight and stuff, but some good things I will say is they have a pronoun section. They have STI health and stuff at the bottom. Are you HIV positive? Have you been tested recently? They actually do have a lot of very progressive things on there, so it's open to everyone. And so yeah, just a little education about Grindr, because I've been kind of shitting on it all night. So it does have good things too, and good people. But yeah.
Well, I think that ties everything together pretty nicely.
Yeah, I think that'll make a good close.
So I think thank you, Mark, for coming on to our podcast.
Thank you both for having me, and I hope you have me back.
Oh, for sure.
We will definitely try our best to make another episode.
we gotta do a whole episode on university stories from you guys.
God.
Yeah.
And camping. Oh, we should do a camping one.
Yeah.
We should have Mark on for the camping one, I think. And Jenna, maybe we'll do a 4-way.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's not best unless it's incest.
Well, that concludes today's episode.
Thanks y'all so much for tuning in, giving us a listen. Be sure to like, subscribe, follow, etc., etc., etc. Comment, share, tell your friends.
And tune in next time when we post another podcast.
We can't give you a timeline on when that will be because we're both in school.
Bye.
Bye.